All right. Hello, and welcome to the Addicts Anonymous podcast. I'm your host, Jamar. Today is episode 42, and we have Paige H with us this morning. How are you doing, Paige?
I'm doing good.
And actually, we were just discussing for you, you're in South Africa, so it's evening for you.
I'm actually in the UK, but I'm from South Africa. Yeah.
Okay, so you're 5 hours ahead in the UK.
Yes.
Okay, well, let's dive in here. Let's start talking about you. Tell us a little bit about growing up. How was that?
So growing up, I grew up with a single mom. I never knew my dad until I was only 12. I grew up in a small town in South Africa. My mom is a kleptomaniac, so she was a couple times arrested in front of me. Yeah, I grew up with quite a snobby, pretentious family, so it was like you could just not do much wrong.
What was that like, seeing your mom steal in front of you? Did it kind of give you the wrong idea of morals?
Yeah, and fear, a lot of fear. Like I
Fear
just
of
knew
what?
it was wrong. Just fear of, yeah, I've always been scared of police, and even more so because my mom was arrested. So obviously after the first time it happened, from there on I was just scared all the time, even just going to the shop with her.
That's a shame.
Yeah.
That sucks.
Yeah.
So did you have both parents?
No, just my mom.
Just your mom? What happened to dad?
He left my mom when she was 5 months pregnant. So they met here in the UK, and then he left her when she was 5 months pregnant. So she went back to South Africa, and she had me, and I reconnected with my dad when I was 12. So yeah.
He's back in your life now.
Yes.
That's good. That's good.
Yeah. Yeah.
So what was life like growing up without dad, just mom? Was it difficult? Did mom have her hands full?
Yes, very much so. I think because my mom had me at really young, she was 21. I think she didn't quite know how to be a single parent. She how can I explain this? She kind of raised me to be independent from a young age. So from a young age, because I had to do so many things alone, I felt very different to a lot of people. And then because my dad wasn't around, I felt very rejected from a lot of people. So because I felt different and rejected, it was tough with the one parent.
I can imagine.
Yeah.
I had one parent growing up too. It was just my dad. And I know the feeling of feeling abandoned.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
So what changed that made him come back into your life around 12?
I think regret.
You think
guilt.
what?
I think regret and guilt.
Oh, regret and guilt.
Yeah. Yeah.
So do you think that had an effect on your drug use later in life?
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah. I think my drug use stemmed a lot from wanting to, I don't want to say rebel, because it wasn't like I went like complete, like I wasn't very rebellious, but it was like I wanted to try all the wrong things. I didn't even get stuck in the wrong crowd. I just knew about drugs, and I was like, I want to try that because it was wrong.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So what age did your drug use start?
13.
And what was your first thing you tried?
Weed.
Okay.
Yeah.
Who'd you try it with?
I tried it with a group of friends that were older than me.
So they were older than you. So you think, was this more about rebellion, or was this more about possibly like a call for help, or was it maybe out of depression? Because like for me, I started using more once my dad left.
Yeah. I think a lot of it was depression, because I also started self-harm at 13. So I think a lot of it was depression and just trying to find that escape from the depression. So like smoking weed with older crowds and stuff like that. um yeah, I think it was from depression.
When do you think the depression first started?
I think it started when I was about 10.
Very young,
Yeah,
very young.
yeah.
I look back and I can't remember when my depression started. I think for me, it was more towards high school.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, mine was pretty young.
Yeah. I mean, my mom left when I was 8. And then when I was 17, I moved in with my mom because my dad and I just weren't getting along. But then my dad ended up leaving. So I didn't have a relationship with him anymore.
Oh,
So that
wow.
sucked.
All
Yeah. I
right. Do
think
you have a
once
relationship with any of them now?
my mom, yes, my dad, no.
Okay.
The only way to describe my dad is he's not a good dude. I mean, he's not a bad person, but he's so won't change his ways. And he thinks I'm just a bad kid. At the end of the day, he thinks I was just a bad kid. He thinks I'm a bad dude that just drinks too much and gets into trouble on purpose when it's like I'm sick. It's
Yeah.
not even the fact that I have alcoholism and drug abuse disorder or substance use disorder. I'm also mentally ill. I have
Yeah.
bipolar, I have OCD, I have ADHD, I have things that make me different.
Yeah.
And he's not
Yeah.
really too accepting of that.
Yeah.
Did your mom notice when you were younger, the times that you were getting depressed, or she noticed anything off with you?
She didn't notice at the time, but looking back now, she does realize where it all started off, that it started off very young. But at the time, no, she just thought I was being a kid or a teenager. Yeah.
Did you like the drugs the first time you tried it?
Yes, I loved it.
What'd you like about it?
I liked that. In my opinion, it was like badass. Like I liked that it was gangster.
Gangster. That's a great way to put it. It's a great way to put it.
Yeah. And then obviously the feeling of it, of just being in, it kind of made you feel in control at first. Yeah, and then obviously there's that turnover after long-term use that's just out of control.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How was school at this time when you were younger? How did you do in school?
I've never really done well in school. I've always like passed, just made the pass mark. I've never been like an overachiever at school or anything like that. I want to say that I think when I started smoking weed more regularly when I was about 14, like an everyday thing, I definitely felt more motivated to study for exams and stuff.
Wait,
Um,
so you said the weed made you more focused to study?
yes, like if I could
Okay.
smoke the weed and then study, I would study. But if I couldn't smoke the weed, I wouldn't study.
That's good. I mean, that's like me also, like when I want to do some reading, I use medicinal stuff, and I also use something called like Delta 8 and stuff. It helps me focus. It's different for everybody. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But there are some people who use that stuff medicinally.
Yeah. Well, it was like that until I tried amphetamines. And then once I tried amphetamines, weed had like a total different effect on me and it just made me want to sleep. And then yeah, obviously went down the wrong path with amphetamines.
What age did you first start amphetamines?
15.
How'd that happen?
So a friend came to school. Okay, well, this isn't really amphetamines, but I'll just say this. So a friend came to school and basically said to me that if I bought her Ritalin, I would do really well in my test that was coming up in like 20 minutes from that time period. She was like, it'll kick in pretty like soon, and then I would do really well in the test. So I started with Ritalin, and I wouldn't even give it a month later, I was using. So we have something in South Africa called CAT. I don't know if it's all around the world. I think it's just kind of a South African thing, which is basically like you take it like you take cocaine, but
You
I don't even
snort it?
know.
Is it
Yeah,
called, is it ketamine?
No, it's not ketamine. It's called cat. KHAT.
KAHT. I've never heard of that.
Yeah, it is more of a South African drug. So basically we used to call it poor man's coke. So it's like it's not coke because it doesn't make you numb, but it gives you energy.
It's a stimulant.
It's yes, yeah. So then because cat was more affordable, I started using that every weekend after about using Ritalin for about a month every day. And then I was using cat on weekends and then as much Ritalin as I could in school on school days because it made me focus more and it took away my appetite. So I think it like the losing weight and the energy to be able to go to gym. So I was eating like I was barely eating. I was working out. I was doing well in school. So like it was all the thumbs up at the time.
Isn't it amazing how good drugs are at the beginning? It's like we like it's to us amazing. To us addicts, it's just the greatest thing. We feel better. I mean, for you, I've never heard that before, especially with the marijuana. People saying that they studied more, got better grades. Because there's a guy, Gabor Mate, I think I'm pronouncing that correctly. And he says one of the things we have to look at is what did drugs do good for us? There were good things about them. And you just pointed out a few. Some people say it kept them from committing suicide. So,
Yes.
and then also it kind of says, once you can figure out why it was good for you, you can kind of figure out maybe it was related to specific trauma in your past. And then you could follow that down the path to the root cause of what your problem was and why you needed it in the first place. And then hopefully, you'll reach a day where you don't need any type of medicine.
Yeah. Well, yeah, it definitely, at first it definitely, so when I started using drugs more frequently, I completely stopped my self-harm. So it definitely temporarily took away the depression.
So you were self-harming, you said?
Yeah.
Tell us about that.
I think so I went to school with a girl who always walked around school showing off where she would self-harm.
You said this was another girl in the school?
Yeah, this was another girl in school. So that's kind of how I got the idea to self-harm. But then I think I got so addicted to self-harm, you feel like you deserve it, like you're deserving of the pain. And then I became really addicted to the pain and the blood so I just
why did you think you deserved it?
Well, I think that stemmed from my dad leaving and my mom not being so emotionally present because she was a single mom and working, and basically like it was always like if something hurt me, it was like, well, my mom kind of had this attitude of, well, other people have it worse, so get over it type of thing. So like your emotions don't mean anything. So then you start kind of telling yourself that you don't mean anything. So I think that's where the self-harm stemmed a lot from.
How did you self-harm?
I used to cut myself.
Where'd you cut yourself?
Everywhere. I started on my arms, and then because in the summer in South Africa, the summers are hot, you can't cover that up. So I started doing the top of my arms because my school shirt would cover that. And then I would like inside and the outside of until my arms at the top were basically had no more space. Then the top of my legs, up the side of my stomach. Then because my school skirt would cover up to my knees, and then my school socks would cover my ankles. So then I started self-harming on my ankles.
Such a shame.
Yeah.
I always wonder things like, who was the first person to do this and spread it around?
No.
I've always wondered that. I just have a very curious mind, and when I learn about something, I want to know where it came from.
Yeah. No, I've often thought about that. More with drugs though, like they say it's a disease, and I'm like, well, how did it get into our DNA?
exactly. That's one of the things that's still out. Um, but that's just a part of my language. It's another shitty addiction.
Yeah.
It's just
Yeah.
adding one more to the pile.
Yeah. Yeah.
So what were you like when you were high? Were you a happy person? Were you a sad person? Were you just neutral and the same as you usually were?
In the beginning, yes, I was actually very neutral. A lot of my friends used to tell me, Paige, it's hard to even tell when you're high because like you don't really change. Yeah, in the beginning I was pretty much the same.
Did you graduate high school?
Yes, I did, luckily.
And at the point when you graduated high school, how was your social life, and were you using and still cutting and all that?
So no, I stopped cutting when I started using drugs more frequently. So that was like between 14 and 15.
So that was basically you just switched from one thing to the other.
Yeah, I stopped cutting completely between 14 and 15, somewhere there. And then I was smoking weed every day, then the Ritalin and the cat, and then obviously clubbing on weekends with MDMA.
All right. And real quick before you get into that, I forgot to ask, how did it feel when you cut yourself? Because the only thing I can think of is I believe when you cut yourself, it releases some like, natural pain killing chemicals from your brain. It might give you a little bit of a, what did it, so you tell me, what did it do for you? I know you said you felt like you deserved it, but was it a good feeling when you did it?
Yeah, it was like, so when you go to the gym and then after gym, people say that like you have this good feeling after gym. I don't know if you've ever experienced that.
Yeah, like a runner's high after you work out.
Yes, so basically after cutting yourself, it kind of felt like that. Like it was like the same sort of release. I don't know.
So say you did it in the morning, would the feeling of goodness last all day? Would it last a week? How long did it last you?
A
How
couple
long?
hours.
Oh, a couple hours. That sucks.
Yeah. So then I was doing it morning, evening, sometimes middle of the day if I could when I got home from school. Yeah.
So what did you do after high school when you graduated?
I ended up working for, so when I was then 16, I got into crystal meth. And that's where kind of and then when I was about 18, I realized I had a real addiction problem.
Who, talking about that, who got you into the crystal meth?
My ex-boyfriend.
So you were really trying to numb yourself. You're trying a multitude of things.
Yeah. 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 So if I used to think that if I could go back to the day that I did use crystal meth for the first time, I should have told him that I don't want to do it, because to be fair, he did say, don't do, like, you don't want to get stuck up in this drug. And I was like, well, if I can't do it, then you can't do it, kind of thing, because for some reason I really wanted to try it. And then so a lot of people blame him and say like that boyfriends like that are really bad, and I never blamed him. I've always, it was me. I made that decision to say to him, if you can't do it, I can't do it. Because what I could have decided was, okay, leave if this is what you want to do.
Yep.
Yeah. And I didn't. So
You
I
had a
was kind of,
choice.
I totally had a choice, yes, because I went to a school where they taught us all about the bad effects of drugs. They showed us all the celebrities, photos of before and after. Like, I was not uneducated. I knew exactly what I was doing, but I still said, hey, let me do it. It's again, it's like that self-sabotage, self-harm kind of thing. Like, I knew where it was going to lead me, but I still did it.
It's just amazing what us addicts do.
Yeah.
Like you said, you know that you're about to get into a slow moving car wreck, and you still did it.
Yep.
It was the same thing with me. Like I knew once I did cocaine, I'd be addicted. And I got addicted, and I did it for a few years.
Yeah.
And then the painkillers, when I first started taking painkillers, I didn't know if I thought they'd be addictive or no, but they ended up being real addictive. But enough about me. We're talking about you. So did you kind of, what was your maturity level like? Because a lot of people say when you start using drugs young, excuse me, when you start using drugs young, your maturity level kind of stays there. Even so, like when say you start using drugs when you're 16, even when you're 25, you still kind of act like you're 16.
So because going back to growing up and my mom being a single mom and me having to be quite independent, I've always been more mature than people my own age, always. So that's why I've always hung out with older people and I've always dated older guys. So I think my maturity has always been above a person's maturity my age. But
Okay,
that's my
good.
take on it. Yeah, and a lot of people who I do meet, like they do say, Paige, you are very mature for your age. Even my friends are all older still to this day. So yeah.
So you started crystal meth when you were 16? Or
Uh,
methamphetamine? I forgot. I'm sorry.
yeah, crystal meth. I think I was actually 17. Yeah, I was 17. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. And then basically from when I started it, my ex and I were on it every day for 2 years, and then we broke up. And then I was on it every day for a year and a half. And what was really scary is in that time I worked and I actually did really, really well in my job. So I had good money coming in, which I obviously spent mostly on my drugs. And it was very hard for my mom to be able to tell something was wrong until I eventually reached a point. So I didn't have a financial issue that gave people the signs that I was using, or I looked after myself really well. So I was a salesperson working and stuff. So it was really hard for my mom to be able to tell. And I had to come to a point where I had to say, I need help.
Yeah, I think when you have when you're self-sufficient and you can handle yourself as far as like your bills and things, it helps hide it much better.
Yeah. Yeah.
Definitely helps hide the fact that you're having internal struggles.
Yes. Yeah. And I worked for my mom. So she saw how well I was doing with sales and, well, housing. So I rented out houses and stuff. So she saw how well I was doing. So there were no like tail signs to her other than isolating in my room all the time. But because I've done that from young, she just thought I'm just like that.
So you've always been a loner type?
Yes.
You think there's a reason for that?
um, I think that, well, what I kind of realized in rehab is that a lot of people who go through addiction have always felt alienated. No matter what age, they've always felt alienated. So I think that stemmed from a really young age, and I was just always alienated. I was just always, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you said you were working for your mom once you got out of high school.
Yes.
How long did you work for your mom?
For a year and I think it was a year and 7 months or 6 months. Yeah, until I went to rehab.
So what got you into rehab? What was the precipitating factor? Was there anything that happened?
Um, Basically, I was just losing my mind. I was smoking. I was hitting a pipe of crystal meth every 20 minutes. I couldn't go longer than 20 minutes without having, because I was starting to like hit a super low. And I was, like, have you ever had that feeling when you're going to meet the dealer again and you're like, I don't want to do this, but you feel like your body has to keep going?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
And I
many
was
of
just,
us, we have something inside of us telling us, don't do it, don't do it. And then you
yeah,
have something also saying, go do it, go do it.
yeah. It stopped being a high. It just Like I couldn't put my makeup on in the morning without having a hit. I could just make coffee. So I could make coffee, and then after coffee, I had to go and have a hit. I couldn't do anything further. So I was sick of it. I was sick of hearing the sound of a lighter. I was sick of.
How was it holding a job during that? If you had to do it so often, how did nobody notice?
I have no idea.
To this
I
day, no
have,
idea.
yeah, I have no idea. So yeah, I just mentally I was not okay. So financially I was kind of okay. Physically I was okay, but mentally I was so trapped, or I was just screaming for help in my head. I was sick of it. So because I had been to my mom twice previously, a couple months before I eventually went to rehab, I had asked my mom, I told her, I said, Mom, I have a serious drug addiction. I need help. And she didn't realize to what extent I had it. She just thought like I was using on weekends or whatever. And like my mom was a kid once, she did that on weekends. So I think she didn't realize the depths of how bad it was. And she also didn't realize how bad crystal meth actually was. So just because I was so trapped, I had a friend who had a farm 4 hours away from where I stayed in South Africa. So I left my job. I told my mom I was going away for a month, and I got on a bus to go try and get sober in the middle of nowhere on a farm with a friend and her husband. And about 4 days in, the detox was just horrible. It was awful, actually. And I got the courage. Well, I thought to myself, if I phone my mom now, because all I really wanted to do was go to rehab, but I was like, can someone just, can something magically just put me in a rehab?
Mm.
So I knew, because I was far from my mom, I was 4 hours away, I could phone her and she could either say, okay, I never want to speak to you again because you've gone down this road of drug addiction and like I just don't want to deal with it, and at least I wasn't home and I was 4 hours away from home. Or she could say, okay, let's actually help you this time. So I knew it was going to go either way, but at least if it went the wrong way of her saying like, I don't care, you need to like sort yourself out, I wasn't going to be at home, so I like wouldn't feel her anger at home. And by the grace of God, she said, okay, I'm coming to fetch you tomorrow morning and we're taking you to rehab.
That's great.
Yeah.
I kind of share some of that story where I had to have my own intervention. Or when I decided to get better, I gathered my family around and told them I have issues. I'm like, I need to admit it to someone. And I didn't even know about the steps. I had no idea about the 12 steps. So, but it ends up that day I took the first step.
Yeah.
Where you admit you have a problem, because we actually have our own set of 10 steps, but no matter what, that's still step one. Even though I have our own set of steps, I borrowed some from AA. And because how else are you going to get better if you can't admit what you are?
Exactly. It's you got to break that denial. You got to, and for a long time, my mom was in more denial than I was. So
yeah, it's nobody wants. I'm sure for parents, it probably feels like you failed, because that's how I would feel.
Yeah. Oh no, definitely. Like I think, yeah, I don't think anyone wants a kid who's unfortunately lost in addiction. And I don't think anyone wants that. It was hard for me though, because I'd been there for my mom every time she got arrested. Like I understood she had a disease, kleptomania. I was there every single time. I think it was something like 8 or 7 times that I was there. And then when I went to my mom for help, like I have a problem, it was like, no, sort this out yourself. So I had to get over a lot of that anger and resentment towards her during rehab because of that. Yeah.
What was rehab like?
It was probably the best 3 months of my life.
Really?
Yeah. In fact, when I left, I was like, I probably should have stayed longer.
Elaborate on that. What was so great about it?
The people, it just, I think meeting other addicts and living with them for that time being, you finally feel accepted. Even though you've stuffed up in life, you feel like they're there for you because they've also stuffed up. So it was that bond, which I hadn't had in a long time, because obviously with my family and stuff not being so supportive. But another thing is, I started following Christ in rehab, and no one in my family I wasn't raised in a faithful house, or so yeah. Yeah, it was just amazing. Yeah.
Great. So what was it actually like? What was your daily routine like?
So we would wake up, and then we would get dressed and have coffee for about 30 minutes. And then we'd have to sit on our beds, which they called like quiet time. So which is like time that you write in your journal, you do your 10th step inventory. And then, or read your Bible or a book or whatever. You just had to be quiet and on your bed for those 30 minutes. Then we had duties. So like every week we were on a rotation of duties. Sometimes you had to empty the porta potty, which was horrible. So like sweeping the rooms or dusting the surfaces. So like a different duty. We went on a rotation every week. Then we had breakfast, and then it was different every day. So some days we would have lectures to understand the disease of addiction and like why we were different and why we were there. Then some days we did equine therapy, which is like horse therapy with horses.
Oh, very
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah. Or gardening. Some days they made us do gardening. Do not have green thumbs at all. Or then our step work. Some days it was just step work.
It sounds like a very peaceful and serene environment, because they do that. I mean, especially when you're doing the detox part of your rehab, it's very, very, I guess the word is plush. Like I remember I walked in, we had this huge, nice leather couch. They had video games. They had a refrigerator that was stocked at all times.
Oh, wow.
You can smoke cigarettes anytime you want, like throughout the day. They did have certain break times, but there were other times where you can just go outside and have a cigarette if you wanted. I don't smoke anymore, thank God. I quit when I got out of rehab.
I quit smoking cigarettes in rehab. I was like, if I'm quitting everything else, I can quit this.
Exactly. And that's what I said. But one of the guys before I got to rehab, he goes, if I were you, I would bring cigarettes. He goes, it's not easy to quit that soon. But when I got out of rehab, one day I just said, I'm like, dude, you don't even like it anymore. It smells, and just stop.
And it tastes horrible.
Yes.
I think it's more like when you high, especially when you're on stimulants, you just need something to do with your hands, so you tend to smoke cigarettes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So how long was the rehab stay again?
I was there for 3 months.
Yeah, 90 days.
Yeah.
So what was the most important thing you learned while you were there?
That it's actually not selfish to put yourself first. Yeah. I've always been a people pleaser, and I learned there that it's okay to say no if you're uncomfortable or if you don't want to be in a situation, and you just can put yourself first, and it's okay to do that.
That's a very important thing to learn.
Yeah.
Because you got to get better for yourself if you want to, because if you do want to actually do it for other people, you need to do it for yourself first.
Oh, yeah.
Without that, you can't do it for anyone else. You can't help anyone else.
No. Yeah. Yeah.
So you'll learn that. You get out of rehab. What happens when you get out of rehab? Where do you go?
Back to my mom's house.
Okay.
Which was testing. It was quite testing. So this was in November last year. So I got out in end of November last year out of rehab. So then I very quickly got a job waitressing, which was very humbling, going from doing real estate to waitressing, because in real estate you earn quite a bit of money, and then waitressing you don't earn that much money.
Yeah.
But I didn't actually do it for the money, because in my relapse prevention plan I wasn't allowed to actually have a lot of money all the time. But I did it for something to do, I think, in the December of last year, yeah. So I ended up picking up quite a few shifts at work. Yeah, and then I was very grateful to spend a few Christmas holidays with my mom, because I thought I was going to be in rehab for December.
That's good. You got a job.
Yeah.
So what has life been? When exactly was this? When did you leave rehab?
End of November.
Yeah, that's what you just said.
Yeah.
So life's been good since then, basically, is what you're saying.
Yeah. Obviously, I have my craving cycles and I have my days, which I think we all do. But I must be honest, I still haven't had a day where I'm as low to even think about going back to picking up again.
How do you do that every day? Is there a routine or a regimen you suggest?
Yes, routine, definitely routine.
What kind of routine do you have?
Well, I don't have like a set routine, but I definitely make sure that I get up, I have something to eat, and I shower and I get dressed. That is the most important thing, I think, especially if you suffer depression. The most important thing is to, as hard as it sometimes can be, is just to get up, have something to eat, shower, and get dressed.
Yep.
It's something about that is just really healthy. And I think another thing is remembering where I came from, remembering what it felt like in addiction at my lowest point, when I just felt that hopeless and that empty and that just so like nothing, basically, like you just nothing. That, I don't know if you can relate to that feeling of just nothingness, of complete nothingness.
Somewhat, yeah. I've done a lot of self-reflection and meditation, and kind of get that feeling.
Yeah. So I think that point, that lowest point in my addiction, remembering that when I have a bad day or a craving cycle, is really helps me to not want to pick up again.
That's good.
Yeah.
So getting towards the end here, I'm trying to think of my next question. What is the biggest lesson you've learned out of all of this?
That's a good question.
Take your time. Take your time. Think about it.
That there can be more to life, I think, is probably the biggest lesson that I've learned, that they're really like that we can make the choice to make our life better every day.
You can fight for what you want. You can make that choice. And
Yeah. My favorite quote is, in the end, everything will be okay. And if it's not okay, it's not the end.
that's great.
Yeah.
That's great. Do you know who quoted that?
I have no idea.
Okay. Still
Yeah.
good. Still good. Yeah, you should definitely post that in the group. I'm sure people would love that.
Yeah.
So that's about it. How do you feel? How did you think you did today? I think you did well.
Yeah, I think so. Thank you.
No, I appreciate you coming on the show. And now towards the end, what my just want to say to everybody, if you like what you heard, go down below, click subscribe. Also give us a like. You can visit us at our Facebook page or the Facebook group. If you go to our group under the events tab, there's a ton of Zoom meetings that we do. I highly suggest you check one out. And then just check us out on other social media. If you're into Instagram, you're into Twitter, Reddit, stuff like that, we're on all of them. We also have a free Patreon account where you can also access the videos. So all that is free. So that's all I got for today. I want to thank Paige again. And
Awesome.
until next time.
Awesome. Thank you for having me.
All right. It's awesome to have you. I really enjoyed our conversation.
Awesome. Thank you.
All right, folks. Until next time.
Bye.